At this period in the life of David, he is fleeing from Saul. He is living among the Philistines, but now the Philistines at Aphek are just about to fight against King Saul, and he asks David not to join them. David goes down to Ziklag, and at Ziklag the Amalekites attacked Ziklag and burned it with fire and took away his 2 wives and the other soldiers' wives and their children. Let's read about it in 1 Samuel chapter 30. Begin reading at verse 9. So David went, he and the 600 men that were with him, and came to the brook Bezor, where those stayed who were left behind. But David pursued, he and 400 men, for 200 stayed behind, who were so weary that they could not cross the brook Bezor. Then they found an Egyptian in the field and brought him to David, and they gave him bread and he ate, and they let him drink water. And they gave him a piece of cake of figs and 2 clusters of raisins. So when he had eaten and his strength came back to him, for he had eaten no bread nor drunk water for 3 days and 3 nights. Then David said to him, To whom do you belong, and where are you from? And he said, I am a young man from Egypt, servant of the Amalekite, and my master left me behind because 3 days ago I fell sick. We made an invasion of the southern area of the Kerethites, in the territory which belongs to Judah, and of the southern area of Caleb, and we burned Ziklag with fire. And David said to him, Can you take me down to this troop? So he said, Swear to me by God that you will neither kill me, nor deliver me into the hands of my master, and I will take you down to this troop. When he had brought him down, and they were spread out over all the land, eating and drinking and dancing, because of the great spoil that they had taken from the land of the Philistines and from the land of Judah. Then David attacked them from twilight until evening of the next day. Not a man of them escaped except 400 men who rode on camels and fled. So David recovered all that the Amalekites had carried away, and David rescued his 2 wives. And nothing of theirs was lacking, either small or great, sons or daughters, spoil or anything which they had taken from them. David recovered all. Then David took all the flocks and herds they had driven before those other livestock and said, This is David's spoil. And now, here is Arie Bar David to explain to us further about this incident in the life of David.
So here we are in the city of Ziklag. Everything is burned behind us. Everything is destroyed. But remember one thing, no one dead body. God promised David that you will recover. I will recover all. And this is so important word. It will appear again and again that God recovered all, everything. So David started to pursue the Amalekites. With how many people? 600. Let's remember that this is the last stage of the fight between Saul and David. And David, during all this period, has 600 people following him. And he started running all the way west and south. This is the area of the Amalekites. I point with my hand, the direction to Egypt. Now this is very hard area. Sand dunes all around. The Besor River, brook. It's deep and very hard to pass. Most of the time you have a desert wind in front of your face. Running, pursuing, and mainly remember that this group of people have just finished a long trip, doing it from Aphek to Ziklag itself. So it's no doubt that some of the people, when they arrive to the Besor brook, which is very hard to get down and much harder to climb on the other side of it, they could not do it. The Bible say that 200, one third of the force, could not do it. They were so weary, and they decided and they asked to wait there for David. Now David didn't stop and start giving them speeches. Remember David, from the first fight against Goliath, he knew one principle. For God is not important if I have a sword or not, if I have a troop or not, if I have 600 or 400. For God is important that I will pursue the enemy. I think it's a great lesson for us. When God is telling us to pursue our enemy, don't look backward how many are behind you. Look forward. And if people are weary around you, let them be weary and rest. And we will see how David was standing on this principle. So we look at the text, and we see very well that they continued and they pursued them, and they arrived to the place where they saw a little Egyptian, a young child. And when they met him, what was the first thing that David did? The first thing, he fed him. I want to remind us what he did him. He gave him something to eat, and then he gave him water to drink. He gave him a cake of figs, 2 clusters of raisins. Why it's so important? Why the Bible has to tell us these details? Food, water, cake, raisins. Look, I think the little details are making the real story. David's heart was so strong to help those who are weary. And it's not important if they are on his side or in the enemy camp. The moment you see somebody which is weary, you have to help him. The Bible says this principle: if you see your enemy thirst, give him water. If he's hungry, give him bread. David kept this rule with this Egyptian young boy. And only after he fed him. And the young man didn't eat and drink for 3 days and for 3 nights in this weather. And why? Because he was sick. So imagine how weary this man was. But David gave him, first of all, fed him. What a principle in our life. Always remember, when the Lord say, love your enemies, the meaning of this is love your enemy. And David showed us here what is the meaning. And then David continued. The young boy showed him the place where all these Amalekites camped and what they did. The 3 main things that people are doing in this situation: eating, drinking, not water, for sure not water, and dancing. What surprise they got when David attacked. How long? From the Neshef. The Neshef is the time of the most dark time of the night. So he did all from early in the morning all the way till he arrived to them, attacked them in the most dark time of the night. And he continued to fight with them, to rob them, till the next day, till the evening. What a big lottery was there. And after he finished all this, he came back to the camp. Now, we see that when he came back to the camp, or not to the camp, to those who were waiting for him, it's written that he brought everything, all the cattle, all the flocks, everything. And people say this is the lottery of David. Last thing, we are talking now about events in the life of David, which didn't take once and then 1 year passed, another event, another 2 years passed, like some of the events that happened before in the life of David. We talk now about events that are happening one after the second. What is the meaning? On the same time that the Philistines made all their big marching from Aphek to Ein Israel, David made the way from Aphek to Chiklag. When Saul, being on Mount Gilboa and seeing the Philistines down in Aphek, moving to Ein Israel, he was frightened to death. And what he did out of this frightening, he went to the witchcraft that was in Endor. On the same time, David finished to cry, to weep, and ask the Lord, and he was going to pursue the Amalekites. Now I want you again to notice, on the same evening, almost the same time, when Saul is going to the witchcraft, and what he got from her. What is the promise? You remember what she told him? Tomorrow, you and your sons with me, down in Sheol. David got a promise. You go and pursue, but I will recover everything that you lost. What a beautiful difference when we walk with the Lord and when we walk our own way. What a promise the second got. What a curse Saul